Yeah, I still use SciTE daily, but not for AutoHotkey code. I think it's a great, and I yell at Irfan somewhat regularly of like, just open it in SciTE. It's a super lightweight, easy, has a lot of great little functionality, right? It's but for developing code, that's where I would rather be using something else. I'm
because of
using
the scintilla, or I mean,
oh,
why are you developing a new editor?
well, mainly because of the issues with SciTE, and also it's a old that's a an older instance of the scintilla control, but it's also we're not going to try to fix SciTE, and Toolkit is just so old. So we want to have something that's super easy for noobs to use with AutoHotkey V2, has IntelliSense, has scintilla highlighting, has, a couple of core features like hit F1 on a word and pull up the AutoHotkey help. Um,
Let me let me demonstrate a little bit. So it is under develop. So if you see any bug, um, you might see any
yeah,
bug.
it's
So,
really early under
so let
development.
me open it. So we are calling it HKEditor. So I can make it bigger, and you can see the highlighting in there. But the cool feature is like if Alt I hit Alt down and move this line anywhere, and I can create copy of this. So this is from VS Code. So and then the last thing I was working on with the multiple carets, and which is right now not possible. But let me show you that code that moves the line. So Alt, sorry, this is Alt up down is
Oh, wait,
moving.
Isaias decided to grace us with his presence.
Hi,
Hi,
now
Isaias.
you're pressing keys. Tell us what keys
Alexa,
you're pressing when you do it.
set the
Yeah.
volume at 95%.
Yeah, Irvin, he's just saying, say out loud what you're actually clicking. Your
Okay. So move up. If I do Alt up, it will move my line up. So you can see I can move my lines up and down in this editor, and this will duplicate the lines. So this is AutoHotkey V2, and it is like amazing to create this functionality. So you can see this. So move line is like getting the scintilla control, and then current lines, and then doing some calculation on regex just to move this line down. Or I can make it one function. Right now there are two. So I have this action class within this editor class. So this editor has also menus in there. So it has menu class in there. So these are the menus. And this is very easy and like handy to, so kind of like engineer guy working with the tools. It is kind of like that when we work with the classes and object. So right now the V2 is really object oriented. So you can see I created a menu bar. I attached to it. I created other menus. So I do not have to modify my other menus here. So I have to go to these functions. So file menu, let me look at the file menu. I added a new function. So yeah, HKEditor new. So this is my, okay, F12 is not working with this, but if it was so I will just add another hotkey in here, and I will just call that function, and it will just move my caret to that position. Scintilla is so powerful too. And this is how I created the menus. And let me go to this open function so you can see how this function is written. So this is the open function. I'm selecting a file and then setting some variable and enabling that menu that says close, because if I do a new, you will see that my close is now there. And then if I did some changes in there, for example, and then I want to close, it should ask me, yeah, do you want to save the changes? I would say no, and then it should close itself. Or if I open that and do some changes and then want to exit, it should ask me. And this is kind of a like for me, this is kind of a learning experience.
Irfan, do you have the list of the functionality that we kind of outlined? I mean, we haven't completely prioritized. We'll release it before we've added all the functionality. You're about to see the list that we have, but we do have a list of features that we want to have available. And one of which, that's what we were actually messaging Isaias yesterday about to try to expand it, was the ability to run temporary files,
Yeah.
without saving them.
Yes, that was. Somebody was going to say something?
No, I was
Okay.
like, I haven't implemented that run function here, so this is the only button
Right.
here.
And yeah, and that was something that we have different ways of doing that. All right. My original way was to create a file somewhere and then just run the file. That's kind of like the dumb way, the simple way. Then you have these temporary files all over the place if you have different names. Recently, I said, oh, let me just use one file name so that it's just one. But Maestris had a way of running AutoHotkey code without generating any sort of files. That's what Joe is referring to. That actually can be found in the help file. So if we go to the help file, let me just go ahead and open this up. The one thing is, I never know where it is. I think it has to do with dynamic scripts or let me see if it was dynamic function calls. No. Let me just 1 second, guys. Hold on.
So I was talking about menus. So these are the menus that I was creating. So you can see there are, like, let me just open something and I can zoom in, or I will change this way. I can do Control+ and Control-, and the same function will be called, and then this is always on top. Okay. I think I changed the menu's name.
Yeah, let's. You don't have to demo everything, Irfan. We know it's in development. Let's look at the list of topics, the features we're planning to implement.
So toggling lines, blocking the comments, and then moving line up and down, auto indent alignments, and then running the script and the compiling. We want to have search replaces, and so I have to investigate some helpful links from.
Well, should we make, because again, we're creating a tool that's for AutoHotkey, right?
Yes.
Let's make it easy to pull up the forum. Hey, pull up the automator, self-serving, pull up regex 101, maybe pull up the mock-up site. Like, there are some links I think would be super handy. And I know, Connie, you use it. I was thinking even like the AHK, I'm sorry, the Automator Resource Finder, because that has covers a lot of stuff, right? Might be a really cool tool to package with this in one way or another to make it available.
Mhm.
And even have like some discovery tools.
It must well, I would assume it would be Ultimate Spy.
That would the problem is for some people that's just too much, right? But I'm open to it. So yeah, I was just making a list of stuff of what might we, and we're not trying to necessarily keep it completely super lightweight. The point, which gets back to Connie, you at like what the question is, what are we at? What's the goal, right? The goal isn't necessarily to replace SciTE. The starting goal, is to have a decent editor for people that are working with AutoHotkey V2 that's not the Ferrari that VS Code is, right? So it's
Amen.
Yeah. Easy to run. Hopefully we have at some point a debugger. Like that was what I added, Irfan, the output debug, even if without the a debugger, like in the site output window, was one of the most favorited things that I had done with site was I used the built-in com object to send text to the output window. So in site you have that output window, that's not always visible, but I made a function that made it really easy to send text to it, which was really handy to have when you're writing code, and it basically worked like an output debug window where you can send your text. So see the where is it? I don't think it's under here. It's under maybe under view. Go back to the tools then.
This is output.
There you go. Yeah. So I used the com object to send. There's a site com object, and I was programmatically sending text to it. And then with Isaias, we wrote a script that said, "Hey, if I'm in site and I use this output, it will connect to that. If I'm in VS Code, it will connect to his, the VS Code debug window. And if you're in, I think there was one more, it knew that, or it would create its own GUI and dump it to there." But even the auto suggester could be really helpful for people. And the new file template, I'm in V1, I relied on mine a lot. In V2, it's not nearly as much. I don't know about you guys.
Sorry about that. Yeah, me neither. The defaults on V1 were not very kind of like logical. So you had to change a lot of things, but the defaults in V2 kind of like take into account all of those. So you usually don't have to change the defaults is what's going on. So sorry, I already have the idea that I wanted to kind of like show. It was the run. So I went ahead and look it up on Prompt Assistant. In Prompt Assistant, we're doing the same thing. And the idea here is that we use a com object like this, is WScript shell. And with this guy, we can execute stuff like if it was the shell, like the command line. I'm definitely talking about this part right here. So it is kind of like the run command with the command prompt, but there's one difference here. Instead of me using the run command and passing, so run command and passing the command prompt, a cmd, what is it? No, a comspec, right? Instead of doing this and passing this asterisk there, I don't remember if that works in this context. So basically here, if you put the AutoHotkey path, right, path to AutoHotkey, and you put a star at the end, that star, what it means is use whatever comes next directly and pass it into the input of AutoHotkey.exe. But I don't think you can do that with the run command as such. What you can do, though, is open the WScript object and connect to the shell through this WScript. And when you do that, you can again go to the AutoHotkey path and pass a star right there. And that automatically tells you whatever you pass next is going to be read directly through AutoHotkey. And not only read, it's going to be executed. It's going to be interpreted right away. Now, this was done by Maestri a long time ago in AutoHotkey Studio. But the place he got that from is from the help file. So on the help file, if you go to the run command right here, at the bottom, you will see certain examples regarding, executing some commands in here. And if you keep going, right, you will see that now we have the AutoHotkey code. So you give it code and you run it as a new AutoHotkey process, basically. So this is the real example. Like, this is where we get that from. It's a very simple idea, but it's very powerful. The only thing that I realized, then I had a lot of issues with that, is you have to be careful with the bitness that you're running in there. So whatever code you're passing, imagine that you have require 64-bit in it, but the AutoHotkey executable that you're trying to do is 32-bit, you get an error. So when I started with this, I was not taking that into account. Remember, Joe, that on Prompt Assistant, we had this new thing that we can tell it which version of AutoHotkey to run it with, right? 64-bit or whatever. And the problem was, because of that or something similar to it, whenever I was trying to run something, depending on the bitness, it would just throw an error, basically.
And remind me, I don't remember if we implemented this or not. Your little code up above where it says run HK, which is tiny, but the V264 at the top of the snippet.
Oh, this, yes.
Does that automatically set the requires?
No, I don't think we have.
Okay. Well, we talked about that.
I'm not quite sure. What it does is that it launches that version. So, well, basically our script uses the requires, well, this comment that we have, it grabs which bitness you selected and it launches that version of AutoHotkey specifically. So we are doing it, but not with a requires directive. And actually, the reason why we're not doing it with the requires directive, that's why I was having the issue, is that here we have to pass a path to AutoHotkey. So even if I have a requires, the requires would clash with the path that I'm giving it if they're not the same. So if my requires is 64-bit, but the path that I'm giving it is the 32-bit, it would throw an error. So what I did instead is just I parse it myself and I get the bitness. And now that I have the bitness, then I put it here. That's the version that I'm going to launch. I'm going to launch the 32-bit version of AutoHotkey or the 64-bit version of it as well.
So anyway, we are working on that editor. No timeline, but I hope it'll help a lot of people that are starting out with AutoHotkey, and because that's where Toolkit's great, but there's some things that I'd love to be able to do in Toolkit that I can't do. Right. So we're and then Toolkit has a lot of other functionality that Isaias, do you recall, like, was that like 15 years ago you wrote that?
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Is there a version like the start date? Do you have that anywhere? Maybe in your Git?
Very likely. Very likely.
Yeah.
Right. And let me tell you, the toolkit itself was doing too many things at the same time. So one of the things that it did is that I was able to take screenshots with it. But you see what you do with Windows snipping, the snipping tool.
Yeah.
The Windows, having a window key selected and dragging and taking a screenshot, I was able to do that. I was able to send the code to a paste bin. Actually, there was this live code thing, which allowed me to kind of like, that's the test code right there. But there was something else. Oh, yeah. And this one is still there. So I have the hotkeys to launch the help files every single time, right? So if you press Control Shift F1 or, well, you set that to whatever you want. I had it to open the help file online or locally. But also, if you are in a forum, so if you're in the forums, I have some hot strings in there that allow me to, right? So it
the BBC or whatever.
Yeah, the BBC. It actually just auto completes that for you.
Yeah.
So if you're in a topic and you do B, it actually goes ahead and auto completes and put the mouse. That one is still there. So that functionality, I left it. I removed a few of the other things that it was doing. It was doing too much at the same time, which again, that's the reason why I named it Toolkit, right? So it was a few things. It was just what I was using at the time, right?